Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co.
And Peter Vaughn from Cardboard Alchemy.
And today we're doing a bit of a conversation around Cardboard Alchemy, around specifically your three games that you currently have: Mission Catastrophe, you have Flamecraft, and Andromeda's Edge in that order. Now, you also run Cardboard Alchemy together with Brad Brooks, you mentioned?
Correct.
And this is something I found out like 3 seconds ago.
Yeah. Well, Brad, you know, I'm out there. I was at Gen Con, and maybe you don't see Brad out there, but he is behind the scenes making these games possible.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And like, you're always on social media doing your thing, and plus, like, I've interacted with you directly, so I just kind of assumed, I don't know why. But you have these three games, and the nature of this conversation is you're in town, you're doing a bunch of Andromeda's Edge content, just played it twice, you're doing a bunch of stuff with Jesse with Quacklope, make sure to subscribe to Quacklope to find all the gameplay and content coming out around the game. And I was like sitting here thinking, hey, is there anything I want to do with you? I'm not yet ready to review the game. We're still in early production phase. There's more prototypes coming. And I was like, listen, I already have 2 plays under my belt, but I want to get more, especially if there's more, especially if they have a nicer prototype coming. I was like, I'll review it when we get closer to the launch, which is
January of 2023.
January 2023, we'll have a launch. And so I was like, not in a rush there, but I was like, hey, you're in town. Let's do something.
Yeah. Appreciate it very much. This is my favorite show. Do you know that?
Ooh. Did you tell Jesse that? Did you tell Jesse?
I don't watch a lot of shows. No, just kidding. I love the honesty on this show.
Ooh, fun. Well, I'm gonna be honest with Jesse about what you said, and I'll send him a clip. But anyways, the nature of, well, so you're in town, I want to do something, but the problem is I don't just like doing something. I wanted something that's actually interesting to me. I don't want like a fluff piece. I want something interesting.
I appreciate that.
And what I thought was very interesting and compelling about Cardboard Alchemy is the fact that you now have your 3rd game coming out.
Right.
And from my perception, and perhaps yours is different, we'll talk about it. From my perception, you have 3 drastically different titles with drastically different audiences, both in terms of the gaming space, the not gaming space, the weight class, the length, the total approach.
Yeah.
Like, more so than most companies I can currently think of, I can't think of what defines a Cardboard Alchemy game yet, because of how different they are. And so I wanted to talk about that.
Well, hopefully I can help define it for you.
Well, that's the conversation. The conversation is either what defines it,
a
or
Cardboard Alchemy game is, I'm hoping, quality, right?
Okay.
That's one of the things. But I appreciate you saying that, because what I worked on in the past, I worked with Breaking Games, and they made tons of games, right? And I honestly came in as the head of development trying to find a thoroughfare to their party, family, and strategy games.
Sure.
What I found is I really liked working on the strategy games most. So when I asked Brad Brooks if he would start a company with me, we had to look at that. What do we want to carve out, right? Now, Brad designed Rise of Tribes and Letter Tycoon, both games which, although not marketed well or dealt with well, they actually managed, despite themselves, to do really well in the market. Letter Tycoon, 7 years old, still sells. As soon as you put a copy up, it'll sell. And Rise of Tribes did really well on Kickstarter and went into Walmart and had a following. It was good.
They're following Kickstarter as well.
Yeah, and I think what Brad used to say is we wanted something with, he used to say a term called Fundensity, right? Okay. So we had played a game night where we played King of Tokyo several times, and then we played this long, drawn-out game, I don't even remember, that was 3 hours of our time. And in the end, we remembered the punchy, fun King of Tokyo times. We were like, that was for the amount of time on the table with our friends and everything else, we called it the Fundensity. We wanted to make sure games don't overstay their welcome. So Rise of Tribes it's an hour-long, it's taking a Civ game and boiling it into an hour. And it's a fun hour.
Sure.
And I think that was one of the things that we said we wanted to start with. Can we make games, we don't want to make, not necessarily long, because this is going to be the thing that challenges that, right? It's a little bit longer.
A little bit longer, not significantly.
Right.
You can knock out a game of this, and Andromeda's Edge is going to vary. I mean, I'm saying this based on my limited experience, but it's going to vary somewhere between an hour to 2 hours for the most part, once you're done with teaching all that. Now, I'm sure you can have longer games, especially if you play at the score. But for going back to your term fun density, Andromeda's Edge has a high fun density in the sense that the strategy and compellingness. A good example, let's say, is...
I have a quote for the Game Pass.
Well, so something that I thought was interesting is Cyberpunk 2077 from Command Games. It's an area control game that I played recently that I think is subpar compared to my favorite area controls. Compared to Blood Rage, compared to Innish, compared to whatever, Cyberpunk does not compete. But I also backed it all in, and I'm very excited for it because it played in almost consistently under an hour and a half every time.
Oh, nice.
And the ones I just mentioned are all better games for me, but they play in twice the time.
Sure.
And so I was like, well, a game that has a little bit less satisfaction but plays in half the time, that ratio, that fun density is compelling.
Right.
Yeah.
And so our first game, and I should also mention that our plan launching Cardboard Alchemy was to publish more games by Brad.
Okay.
I was going to do the dev. I was going to do the deluxeification.
None of these have Brad's name on it.
Brad was going to design all the games. Now, Brad still has games coming, but the pandemic changed everything. Okay. We didn't have the time to get those games to the table. The testers weren't there. So we started searching for games that were already done and ready to go. And we found Mission Catastrophe. The gem to me of Mission Catastrophe is that it's got a core system that we could play with that core. We could modify that core, and we could deluxify that game. And I think that when you talk about its heart, it's such a fast, quick hit. And if that's what you want, then you've got that in that game.
And high level Mission Catastrophe, it's well, I don't know if how do you describe it? Because I know how I describe it, but.
Well, I usually start with, I say it's a ship that's doomed, and there's only one escape pod. Everyone's got to race to get to that pod, at all costs. So
yeah. It's chaos. It's moving around. It's trying to get your specific things you need to actually achieve your victory. There's semi-co-op, co-op, and solo modes all in the game.
Yep.
There's, I think, it's pure competitive, or no, it's semi-co-op, co-op, and solo.
Its main mode is competitive. People will say that it's semi-co-op. It really is competitive at its heart. But there's that slight element of
keeping the ship alive.
You might need to do something nice in order for us all to live, but you might say, never mind.
It plays fairly quickly, has a lot of variety, especially once you mix in the expansion modules and everything else you have there. Highly deluxe components and everything, and is a lot of fun. It's a little chaos, a little fun. I don't know what the official weight class is, but I put it at, medium to light. Light drifting towards medium, and medium drifting towards light.
And that's an interesting part when we talk about our games. I did not expect our catalog was going to be, say, that light. When I first started, I thought maybe we'd make all between Rise of Tribes and Dwellings of Eldervale. I actually still think we're aiming for.
I think this is part above Rise of Tribes. I would classify above.
It's hard to compare that because the two genres.
Different genres, but like I put this above King of Tokyo, above Rise of Tribes, below Dwellings of Eldervale. That's my own personal.
Okay, so we might be in the window we might be in the range I'm talking about. Yeah. But it is a curious thing that's happened, which is that we did that one. Okay. And we were looking for our second game. Again, we're going to get to Brad's games.
Brad's games are coming.
They're coming. We said, what are we going to do? We looked at we went around, and I'm in a lot of protospiels. I know a lot of other design communities, and I was looking for games. We found one, for example. This is an excellent game, but a super, super dry Euro. Okay. We were tempted. I like to occasionally play dry Euros. I think that I like crunchy games a lot. But I was like, how could I kickstart this? Could I make the components exciting? Am I going to make squishy whatevers?
Squishy berries. They sell all the time.
Right, they do. But we didn't feel like it was us. So then I realized theme is the other part of the equation. I have to have something thematic. If I'm a big fantasy guy, that Dwellings of Eldervale, which I helped develop, was my dream game. So that's my wheelhouse. So when we looked, we saw a game about tiny artisan dragons. It just was charming. Okay. It was something that I knew would be charming on Kickstarter.
This is Flamecraft. So where did you pick this one up?
So I'm friends with Manny Vega. He's a designer of Sparkle Kitty, and then he had seen this art online and cooked up this idea of a town where all the dragons help each other. What's funny, Mission Catastrophe is cutthroat. Flamecraft is the opposite of cutthroat, which is why I could see why this would be like, well, you're doing very different games.
Yes. So these two alone, I wouldn't have even yet put you at very, very different. It's almost the ratio, because you start off, to me, and this is my perception, you start off with a light to medium game of space exploration, of blowing things up, of getting each other's faces, and then you drift towards something that is equally charming in theme, very different, but equally charming, lighter than, to me, I'd classify this as lighter. Flamecraft, I think, is lighter. You don't think so?
I don't know. Because the engine building that happens in Flamecraft, we're putting between Century, Spice Road, and Wingspan. We're kind of thinking, if you like Wingspan, this is just around the same, lighter?
Interesting. All right. So my perception would have been a drop lighter, but again, it's close enough though that I think that both of them don't yet, to me, break from what I think of as necessarily what you're trying to go for. Okay. For me, the break occurred once you introduce Andromeda's Edge, and you go from, again, my own perceptual bias was medium light, a little bit lighter, and then, boom, heavy space strategy, next sequel to Dwellings of Eldervale.
And this is important that we're doing our third game into a deeper end of the pool, and here's why. We need to triangulate. Remember how I said Rise of Tribes to Dwellings, right? Yeah. If we do our third game as that weight, everyone will say, you're now stepping outside of where you need to be. Yeah. And I really want to define the zone of, we can go anywhere from here to here, and then that will be right where we want to be.
And then Brad's games are going to be where?
I think, I mean, he's done Rise of Tribes, right?
Yeah. No, I'm saying Brad's follow-up game.
And his next, well, one of his games is sort of, in the spirit of Rise of Tribes, it's a post-apocalyptic version of the Dice Pusher with a little bit more depth. So we're going to go above Rise of Tribes, be in the middle. I would love in the middle. I'll play light, I'll play heavy.
Yeah.
But I prefer right in the middle.
Yeah, my go-to general drifts towards medium plus, but I'll play anything in any context or situation. The general way I put it, going back to Fundensity, is a big thing for me is the more accessible it is to actually table the game, the easier it is, because practically speaking, the way I look at it is if you introduce a new 3-hour-long game to my collection, I might love it, but it's competing with a bunch of other 3-hour-long games.
It sure is, right? We all have time that we got to... And one of the reasons why I put all of the trays and organization in Dwellings was because I was playing Gloomhaven at the time, and let me tell you, you take everything out of Gloomhaven. Yeah. Does anyone want to play that again? You're like, the setup time, right?
I play Gloomhaven on stream, on digital, for a reason, over on Camp Co-op. Link down below, plug for that. But
so that, I mean, I'm thinking about that all the time. I don't want to waste anyone's... I want us to get to the table fast, play more games. I mean, that's sort of part of it.
And I've pitched that heavily. Every time I've talked about any game, every time I've ever talked about any Kickstarter, I'm always like, hey, the insert's where it's at. The insert is what lets you play the game, so get the games with the good inserts. Anything from Foundations of Rome, which has a fantastic 5-minute setup time, to even like when we're talking about Flamecraft, I was talking about how quickly and easily things will pull out if you have the upgraded deluxe version.
So that's, I guess, another thoroughfare for Cardboard Alchemy, although I didn't realize it, is I met Noah from Game Trays when I was working on Dwellings. And fortunately, Noah and I have hit it off, and I'm proud to say Game Trace is part of all of our games so far. We hope to continue it with our whole line.
They're doing their own first game for the first time.
They are, Forsaken. Yeah, I'm excited about that one. Because Noah's he's not fine to settle with just, I want to make better organizers for the industry. He's like, how can I make games that flow out of that system, or tables, or whatever?
I find the industry in general fascinating, the way you have companies like Board Game Tables that are now known more for their games than their tables, and the companies like, Wormwood with their vlogs and their tables and their components, and Game Trays jumping into board games. The shift in the way people just jump from thing to thing because they just like the hobby and they want to play it out.
Yes, we all like to be here.
Going to Andromeda's Edge, because I mentioned already, spiritual successor of Dwellings of Eldervale.
Yes.
Why? Dwellings of Eldervale was incredibly well received, incredibly well liked. And now you're like saying, okay, great, let's go to the next one. What's the driving force between the next theme already on this?
Well, so Luke Laurie is sort of the thoroughfare there, right? Luke makes worker placement games all the time. He made Cryo. He made Whistle Mountain.
Manhattan Project.
Energy Empire. If anyone's a fan of that, there's a little DNA in here. So Luke loves that engine building and that worker placement. And in a lot of ways, he builds upon his own... his games. So Cryo, for example, is the first game that ever had slotting of something tokens.
Okay.
But it didn't come out fast enough. Z-Man was still working on it, and he then put that in Dwellings, which I found really innovative on those adventure cards. He's taken it another whole step here. So he just kind of... he found out a long time ago he was making a game that was a little bit like Blade Runner, but it was more of a party game. By the way, it's amazing. Someday I'll figure out how to get it under another label, because we're not going as low as party games. But he realized that that's not his style. He was trying to make a variety, and he realized actually for him, laser focus right in the same category as what he wants to do. So after Dwellings, which I sadly do not have as the publisher, and that's a long story, but I wanted another game from Luke. And I said, what can you do? And he said, well, my favorite category is sci-fi. I'd love to go back to sci-fi. I'd love to explore another way of attacking Dwellings. So this is very similar, but we're innovating on the combat, the engine building. We're innovating on just some of the ways, some of the options you have. So it's changing it.
So this is more about Luke wanting to approach... You wanting to work with Luke wanting to iterate upon his continued DNA of his games.
Yeah. I mean, he's got an interesting situation with his games. I actually feel really bad for him. We're hoping that Andromeda's Edge breaks this, this trend. But, like, his first game, Energy Empire, was not available for a while. Because James Matthey, rest in peace, he passed away. And then that shut down Luke's game. And then he saw, just for whatever reasons, You know, I think that Whistle Mountain is I don't know if it's out of print, but I know that it's not readily available, maybe. And then Dwellings has had its own challenges. So Luke's like, I need my games to get out there. And I said, well, we're going to solve it with this one. We are partnered with Lucky Duck for distribution, again, like we did on Flamecraft. And they're going to make sure it gets worldwide and it's accessible. And so as long as we fund and we get this game produced, we're hoping to give Luke what he's hoping to see, which is his games everywhere. And
now, what's your hand, or Brad's hand, or anyone's hand in the development process of any of these 3 titles? Meaning, how much of it is the designer involved, or how much are you jumping in yourselves to iterate, to adjust, to tweak?
Yeah, good question. When I was signing games, breaking games, I used to say, I'd like to see a game at about 85% or better. Mm-hmm. I don't want to, if someone presents a game that's 50%, I mean, I have games that are 50%. We could finish one of my games. The issue is I'd like to see enough there. I'd like to see the designer's vision and then massage it. I feel like my skill set, I have designed games, but my skill set is more of I can see what a final product would be. So I'd like to give it that last bit. And especially considering that Cardboard Alchemy is a Kickstarter or crowdfunding company, because we're not just using Kickstarter.
And this is on Kickstarter or GameFound?
This is going to be on GameFound. Okay. It's our first on GameFound. There's another, interesting reason why we're doing that. But since we're on that platform, I also want games that we can deluxify. So if I see in the design, wow, this is a great core game, it's got everything there, but I also could see stretch goals, I could see the way to bloom that game, that I'm very interested. So on these titles, Mission Catastrophe was a core game that was mostly done, and our responsibility was all those extra modules, all the modularity of it, all the factions, and we asked the designer, who had 36 rolls, to make it 72. We said, let's blow this up a little bit. When it comes to the solo modes, Brad dug in. He made a solo mode for Rise of Tribes, and so he was doing that. So I would say and then for Flamecraft, Manny had a great concept, and the game was working on the table, but we needed to polish the dragon powers. We needed to figure out just how to get that into its... it was a little bit lighter, and we said we want to deepen it a little bit. We want to make sure that it has not just the cuteness factor, but we want to make sure that it stays on a lot of tables. So we did all of that. And in Andromeda's Edge, Luke makes this very easy, because he's very... I would say that I'm not positive it was 85 at the start, but Luke makes sure that when he's done, it is as solid as possible. And I have to do Brad and I are working on components, and we're working on balance, and we're working on getting that, Fundensity all packed in there. But Luke stays with it such a long time, just to make sure that it, carries through.
Cool. And so you mentioned the GameFound versus Kickstarter is another fun conversation.
Yeah. So why are we switching, right? Yep. Well,
and Flamecraft's about to deliver too.
Flamecraft is about to deliver.
It's not about Kickstarter rules.
Right. Well, though Kickstarter has had some interesting things with it. Our very first campaign was actually a coaster and game trays campaign. Yes. We wanted to indicate that we are here for great art and awesome components. That's what we wanted to indicate with that first campaign. With a little bit of a hello, we did these coasters.
Yeah, I got my coasters. Representing.
And we're doing a coaster for every campaign. It's kind of a fun thing where each time we'll show art and... Right, so we have a robot, and then we have dragons coming for Flamecraft. And I told Sergio Chavez for Andromeda's Edge, think of the coaster.
Think of the coasters you want.
That'll be fun. Anyway, that first campaign, we did run into problems with Kickstarter. They said, you can't launch a mission. So this is a sort of this is Kickstarter backstory. We launched coasters and game trays. They said, green light, you can go. We get midway through the campaign. They say, this isn't new enough. You're not making anything. We're making coasters. The art has not existed. That's not enough. You need to make something new in 48 hours or we shut this Kickstarter down.
Okay.
And I was like, what are we going to add? So I went to Noah and I said, could you please make a new color? And this was a huge ask for him because we didn't have the money to make a new color. And, investing in a new mold, a new color is a big investment. So Noah's like, okay, I'll make a new color that I was thinking of making, and I'll give you the first batch of it, which is amazing. So he made all of a sudden red. We have a red tray, and we stayed alive on Kickstarter. Then they said,
so that's their line. The new art's not good enough, but the new color is.
Yeah, they decided. The rules on Kickstarter, as you all probably know, are random and don't make any sense.
No, it's okay. We're fixing it. We're going on the blockchain.
Right.
Yeah.
So they said you have to make a new color. Now, ironically, making a new mold and new color takes time. So as we reached Mission Catastrophe, a planned release was Mission Catastrophe in the fall. And as we reach it, they say, well, you didn't finish delivering, so now you can't launch Mission Catastrophe. I said, but we didn't finish delivering because you required us to make a new mold. We delivered all the other coasters and all the other trays are done, but now we are not going to make it. And with some begging, they said, okay, we'll let this go. You can do Mission Catastrophe. So the Mission Catastrophe goes, but then freight problems and shipping problems, and all of a sudden Mission Catastrophe is late, and they said, well, you cannot launch Flamecraft. And we're like, this is making it a lot harder to get our company going. We're stalled, right? And then I said to them, what if I bring tons of people to Kickstarter for Flamecraft? What if I make the page just so many people waiting that you cannot help but let us launch? And they said, we'll see. We'll see when Flamecraft is going to launch.
Okay.
And then Flamecraft showed up with thousands of people waiting, and they saw the page, and I think they said, yeah, we want this one, which is awesome. I love the fact that Kickstarter let us.
This video is going to piss off a whole lot of publishers who got told no.
Well, I think after that they came up with these rules of you must have 3 or 4 under your belt before we'll let you violate.
Yeah. Flamecraft was right around the time. So having worked with a lot of publishers in a lot of different ways, I know when Kickstarter started getting strict. Kickstarter always had this premise that you have to deliver, but they never really enforced their rules in any reasonable sense.
They started to. And I think, like with my experiences, they were starting to.
Right around Flamecraft, I know this because I was talking with multiple people, and every other publisher was taking notes of every other publisher as they were being told no. They were being like, but that person got told yes, that person got told yes. So I remember like the times and the campaigns, like the 10 or 12 campaigns in which like we're taking notes against each other, like which one got through, which one didn't. And then Kickstarter started going through their heavily enforcement of, like you said, I think it's 3 or 4 campaigns under your belt fully delivered before you can run simultaneous campaigns. Right. Otherwise, it's deliver first, which I think is a great concept. I do think it was messy the way they had rules that they were not enforcing, and then out of the blue, they're like, hey, by the way, I know it screws with the entire business plans, but now we're going to start enforcing the rules.
Yeah, I'd rather have one way or the other. They're going to be really hard about it, great. Everyone should have the same hard rules.
Yep.
Or they're going to be loose about it and realize this is a creative field that sometimes has multiple deliveries still
Like,
coming.
imagine if you were driving and you just didn't know which day going 71 and a 70 got you a ticket or not. That's the kind of conversation. It's like, there's rules and then there's lack of enforcement. Yes, going 80 and a 70, different conversation. But if going 71 and a 70, every 5th person is pulled over, you just can't run things that way. And that's where Kickstarter was at for a bit.
Yeah, and to be honest, I mean, I love Kickstarter. Yeah. I actually started funding Kickstarter games. My very first game on Kickstarter was in 2013. Mm-hmm. I have now run 8 campaigns on Kickstarter. It's part of why I'm here. It's part of why I was able to take a full-time job in games. Thank you, Kickstarter. But very interesting this happened right now, which is that in the midst of Kickstarter also finding themselves and figuring out their rules, a couple other companies have popped up. You know? And I'm curious about these other companies. I'm curious about what's happening at GameFound. I met the owner of GameFound at UK Games Expo.
Nice.
He gave me, he said, I just want to tell you that with almost no marketing, you've got Rise of Tribes to here, and I've seen what you did with Dwellings, and he's like, I really want to work with you. I really love what you're doing. I said, well, that's a fascinating conversation. What's the right game to put on GameFound? I don't think it's Flamecraft, but this is an interesting game to put on GameFound. I think the community over at GameFound wants this heavier strategy games.
They drift heavier. A game like Flamecraft is more likely to pull in the casual audience that's browsing Kickstarter, and on GameFound it tends to drift a little heavier right now.
Right. The people who are following us right now, I think they're ready. They know what they are looking for. They're ready to comb through the minis and the wash and see all the things we're doing and the different options. And on Kickstarter, I mean, I'm really proud that we got 3,000 people who had never backed a game before to come with us on Kickstarter. So that's exciting. And I think our plan then is to divide our line a little bit if it's going to be like the next chapter in Flamecraft, which of course we're making because we have to do dragons now. Probably every other game.
Only done 2 of the plushies, and I think we want more.
Each campaign's had 2 more plushies, and as you said, all the mini poses that have to be done, like all the dragon poses. So I think what we're going to do is focus to say this target when we have our audience on Kickstarter, and we might do sequels over there, continue over there, and then say when it's the right game and it needs to have its core audience as a different group, we'll say, hey, come over here. I hope that doesn't. Of course, my concern is that we confuse backers too much. But we'll do our job on our newsletter and in social media to say, if this is what you want to do, come over here and have fun with this game. And then if you want to wait for the next one of those, it's going to be over here.
Nice. Yeah. Very nice. And then past these three, what's next for Cardboard Alchemy?
We've got some really exciting ones. First of all of Brad's games. Actually, one of his, but we've also continued. We have a really exciting bag builder. What's funny about our first three coasters is they had artwork on them that is not assigned to any other game. And as a joking video, we kind of joked about the games that they would be. And we had this one that's a golem in a forest. It's a fantasy forest with an ancient golem that's shut down. And everyone's like, what's that game? Well, it doesn't exist yet. But on the video we said, oh, have you ever played that one that's a bag builder? Like, oh yeah, like Orleans. And so we kept getting requests for it. And we've decided to make this game. Which is kind of fun. We're going backwards off of a coaster.
I don't mind. I mean, listen, I one of my favorite games in my collection is a game called Tak, which is all inspired by Patrick Rothfuss, The Name of the Wind. They mentioned the game Tak, and they made an abstract, which happens to be amazing. So, listen.
So that's we're calling temporarily. We're calling that Whisperwood. So we're going to come out with that. We've decided. Druids are awakening this ancient forest, and you have to use the animals in sort of a bag builder to awaken the golems. It's going to be a lot of fun. We also are working on the next Flamecraft chapter, where we said at the end of the campaign, all of the dragons go on an adventure. They leave town. The premise that
same world, different game.
Yes. Okay. Well, yeah, so same world, but not necessarily same mechanism. So basically what the artist originally drew, we don't know if this is the starting hook, but the bookstore, which is a piece of art in Flamecraft, has a potion dragon and a plant dragon sort of pouring through all the books. And what if they found a treasure map that leads outside the town and then to this ancient part of the world that they've never explored? So they're going to go there. We're going to do something different than town. I'm trying to think. Well, I mean, I did mention that Brad's game, the Rise of Tribes dice pushing. We really love that mechanism. And when I first made Rise of Tribes, I said, "Why Stone Age? Should we go like Mad Max?" And Brad's like, "No, I want to stay in Stone Age." But now we're saying, okay, what if the world fell apart? Everyone went into bunkers and has come back out. It's a brand new Rise of Tribes, but now there's monsters and there's all sorts of stuff out there. It's not like a dark view of it, I don't think. It's more of a beginning civilization view still, but with some twist to it.
Very cool. Yeah. So I'll throw a link down below to the game fan page for Andromeda's Edge. Anything else you want people to know? Anything lastly that they should know about anything? Either the company, Andromeda?
I guess I'll just say thanks for all the people who are giving our games a chance and backing us. We are still saying at the core we are here for art, and we're here for deluxeification, and we're here for great games that last on the table. So we really appreciate everyone giving us that chance.
Excellent. Peter, I appreciate you being here. Appreciate the background to your games. There'll be a link down below to the game fan page for Andromeda's Edge. Again, if you haven't played Dwellings of Eldervale and you've been desperately trying to seek out a copy that's reasonably priced, this is going to be the closest thing you'll have at the moment. And personally speaking, from having played it, I prefer to Dwellings of Eldervale, but while very much maintaining the same DNA. And if you have played Dwellings of Eldervale and you have to make a decision around whether you want another one, that's a harder conversation, and I recommend checking out Quacklope for some gameplay videos, and there'll be more content on my channel at some point, and we'll figure all of that stuff out. But good luck either way you have a game that's wanted, well sought after, that will do well for you in one way or another. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board & Co.
Peter Vaughn from Cardboard Alchemy.
And have a good one.
Thank you.